Okay.
Hey, folks, welcome to Caching in the Northwest. This is the podcast from the birthplace of geocaching right here in the great Pacific Northwest. Now, it's Thursday at 9 p.m. Pacific, sort of. We'll get to that. And I'm Chris of the Northwest, and we're going to talk about geocaches and geocachers from here and all around the globe. So while you're tuning up the car for that road trip, we'll be caching in the Northwest. And folks, tonight we are recapping GeoWoodstock 19 with our very special guests, Darrylw4 and Renee. So thank you for joining us this evening, guys.
Always a pleasure. Very excited to be back on the show.
Thank you for having us. This is my first time.
This is her first time, yeah.
Oh, welcome. Yeah. Welcome. We'll be nice.
Welcome for the first time to the Renee, and welcome. I don't know what the count is for Darryl, but good to see you again.
Well, time differences made it rare, so I think this might be the fourth time.
Okay. Well, you're always welcome anytime you want to stay up late. But before we jump into the show, we have to do a quick reminder that we appreciate the support of all of our patrons who help to keep this podcast coming each and every week. We want a special thanks to Land Sharks. That's Land Sharks with a Z. They're one of our corporate Denali level sponsors. Watch for a Coronation of King Charles trackable geocoin to be for sale on their website. Check their website. Maybe it's there now. I don't know. Look and see. You can check that out and all of their wonderful merchandise at landsharkswithaz.ca. And our other corporate Denali level sponsors, that would be Gold Country Geotourism. You can visit exploregoldcountry.com to learn more about the geotours. I think there's 2 of them.
There are.
And the region. And don't forget to download their app. They have a great app up there. You can go to exploregoldcountry.com or facebook.com/exploregoldcountry. If you want to know more about supporting the show, why don't you run over to the cachingnw.com website and click that Patreon link. We'd sure appreciate it.
We know you want to. Go there now.
Go there now.
Oh, folks, this is the part of the show where we would tell you what hashtags we want you to use for interaction. However, this is a special episode, and we're recording early. There's going to be some vacations, and with Darryl and Renee being in different time zones, it's going to work better if we record it. So just want to warn you, that's what I want to say, is that this episode isn't live. It will sound live just because I'm going to make the same mistakes I always do when we're live. I'm not going to edit those out.
There you go. And just for clarification, Darryl and Renee are in the same time zone as each other. Just a different time zone from the rest of us. From you and me. So, yeah, if the chat's going live, and I have a hunch it's blowing up anyway because you guys are always awesome, go ahead and discuss things amongst yourselves. We're just not going to be able to see them in real time and comment back to you. But we appreciate you being there, and next week we'll be back just at the regularly scheduled time.
That's right. But we are privileged to have Darrylw4 and Renee W25 with us. I want to say back with us, but Renee, this is your first time.
Yes, it is.
So welcome.
Thank you.
Darryl, in the rare case that somebody doesn't know who you are, would you tell us a little bit about yourself, like how long you've been caching, where you are, shared history you may have with a certain host of this podcast?
Well, I started caching in 2005. So it seems like it's been 20 years, but it's not quite there yet. But that was actually just after I started podcasting. At the time, I was podcasting about cycling, and I found geocaching through that podcast and Sunny and Sandy. Connected with them, and eventually I switched to doing geocaching podcasts within, I think it was like a year or two of starting caching. And then Chris and I ran into each other doing Chris, help me out. What was the name of that
geocaching
question of the day?
Oh,
no, but it was
question of the day.
Yeah, so you were doing the geocaching question of the day on Twitter. Mm-hmm. I had been active and a subscriber in that as much as I could, and invited you to do that as a segment on the show because we were looking to expand that show. And I don't think it was even 3 or 4 years after that, we started doing Geo Gearheads together.
Exactly.
And that finally wrapped up about 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Which it's hard to believe it was only 2 years ago, because it wasn't 2 years ago. It was 19 months or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's hard to believe it was only that long ago, and it's hard to believe it was only that long ago.
Yeah.
But,
exactly.
In all of that, I reconnected with Renee at one point because she wanted to learn to cache. And so in 2014, you started caching.
Exactly. I had heard about it before, and we had been in touch, but we hadn't really seen each other in a long time. So once we did, our first date, I guess you could say, was geocaching.
Nice.
And she made at least one, I think 2 appearances on Geo Gearheads.
I made a couple.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it sounds like a great first date to get out and go caching together.
It worked out well.
I'm
I
glad.
probably would have chosen a different name, but he told me his name, and I didn't really understand all the cool names that other people had. So,
And that's one of the things I keep finding more and more often is people don't understand what they can do with their names when they pick them, and they'll pick them and just stick with them anyway.
Yeah.
right.
They're like, I should have picked this. Well, you can change it.
Change it.
Well, yeah, but at this
But I
point,
don't want to
why-
change it.
Why should I change it? Exactly. But we were out caching, found the cache, and then he said, "Oh, by the way, you need an account. What do you want your name to be?" And I was like, okay, what's your name?" And it was easy also getting married and not having to worry about my last initial because it's the same. It was
Yeah.
always W.
There you
So
go.
it worked
And
out
it-
well.
And with Renee W at 25, you're at least 6 times better than Darrylw4.
You know?
So way
At
to
least.
one up or 6 up
Thank you.
or however you want. Yeah. All right. Well, it's great to meet you. I think this is my first time meeting you, and Darryl,
I think
always
so.
good to talk to you again. You mentioned Geo Gearheads has run its course and sailed off into the podcasting sunset, but you're still producing interesting content from what I understand. Tell me what you're doing now. Tell the listeners what you're doing now.
Well, we switched to YouTube and kind of more a vlogging style. It's not like your daily vlog or anything, but we do have some, vlog style videos. We do a bunch of other stuff on the channel as well. So it's not just geocaching anymore. But Renee and I do that together as R&DW Adventures. We, of course, have a bunch of geocaching stuff on there. And that tends to be on Wednesdays, but it's not all we do on Wednesdays. We do some travel stuff. We do some weird random stuff. We do Legos.
Right.
But Mondays tends to be about Disney, and then Fridays is kind of one of our favorite ones. It's junk fooding.
And that started as Periscope.
That was started
yeah.
with the nieces and nephews.
Right.
We just randomly fire it up, do a Periscope video on trying some weird foods that we found from like the Asian market or wherever we happen to find it.
Right. Eating bugs in Cincinnati.
And that, actually, Chris, were you on that one? I think so.
Where we found those
The chirp chips from
chips.
Jungle Gyms.
Yes. I was going to say, I don't remember eating bugs, but yes, chirp chip. Yeah.
They were made from
ground
crickets
up.
or
They weren't
something
full.
like
Yeah, they weren't full
that.
crickets.
No, we
They were
didn't actually
ground up.
eat bugs, but
It was cricket meal, I guess, is what we'd probably call
something
it.
like that.
Well, the ballpark here, the Seattle Mariners, does have crickets available to eat, and they're flavored chili, lime, and something else, and they're not bad. Yeah.
They do that, and I had them like that once in Mexico. They asked me if I wanted cricket, and I didn't really understand. And they crumbled cricket on whatever it was I was eating. It was spicy.
There you go.
Nice. Now, that's really good to know that you guys are still putting out content and eating crickets, or maybe not eating crickets. I don't know.
No, we're not eating many crickets anymore.
No.
We still find interesting things. Some of them not as good as the crickets were.
We're up for a challenge if people have something for us, though.
Oh, you don't want me to get involved in that.
Uh-oh.
But we do have a nice list of places that people have asked us to go check out and see if we can find anything. Try out places that they found interesting.
Okay. Well, we're here actually to talk about GeoWoodstock 19. Now, for you too, how many GeoWoodstocks have you been to now, and where was number 19?
Well, number 19 was in Owensboro, Kentucky, which was my sixth one. And I've done far more than she has because I've been caching for longer.
Right, but in the last 8 years, we've done 2.
Yeah.
So I've done 2.
Yeah. It's been a little bit more challenging to do the GeoWoodstocks, but I started with GeoWoodstock in Sacramento in 2008. That one I don't think you went to, Chris. I believe that was a little before your time.
Mm-hmm. Which is funny, though, because I was living in California at that time.
But nowhere near Sacramento.
No, but
that was a really good one because, the farm that they had that on was another kind of like event space. Mm-hmm. Nothing like the recent ones, and I'm sure we'll get into that later. But it was a really nice venue to have something like a GeoWoodstock. Carnation, Washington, in 2010 was my second one. That one, I know Chris and I hung around quite a bit because we have photos of that too.
Yeah.
But that was, again, more like a fairground, but it didn't have the infrastructure.
No.
It was just like an empty park, which is more the typical Woodstock.
Yeah, that was Remingler Farms out in Carnation. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So it was just a big open space, had a couple of buildings, lots of parking, and that's about it.
And then my next one was in Warren, Pennsylvania. That was another fairground. That one we had a whole bunch of problems with all sorts of things, but it's where we tried to do a podcast studio, did some live streaming and everything, which was pretty cool, except we couldn't do the streaming, so it ended up just being live recordings. And I didn't go to another one, though, till 2018 with the GigaStock in Cincinnati.
That's where I met you, Chris, in person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry. No, you know what? I missed St. Charles, Missouri, which Chris and I did as a road trip together.
Missouri.
That one was probably my favorite because I loved being downtown like that.
Yeah.
It was nice downtown.
Into the downtown area.
Yeah, it was just in one of the roadside parks. And that reminds me a lot of what they did with the one in Owensboro.
Yes. They were very involved with it. Was very
This one was heavily driven by Owensboro's tourism industries.
Mm-hmm.
So, what was it? I don't remember what they called their Chamber of Commerce and Tourism, but they were heavily involved. They were doing most of the venue acquisition and coordination.
They are doing, we met a couple people actually from Michigan who told us, from Michigan, not geocachers. One of them was, right? One of them was, one of them wasn't. That told us a lot about what what Owensboro is doing as far as trying to get people of the area involved. And
yeah, but this is one where Owensboro, the tourism department, whatever they were calling it, really was anxious to get involved and host the events. So I'm sure it made it really easy for the organizers to get it pulled off, but we got some really awesome venues to use.
Absolutely.
Nice. Now, usually you learn a lot about the area through geocaching and through maybe some of the lead up and the post events. Was that the case here?
Not as much as usual.
Really surprisingly, we didn't get nearly as much as we usually do. But with so much of this centered around the Bluegrass Museum, we learned more about bluegrass, which isn't saying much because neither one of us are bluegrass fans. Yeah, I recognize a few of the names.
Right.
But that was about it. So we did retain much of what we learned, but we had full access to the museum, so we learned a lot about the artists, about the instruments, the music, and then the GPS maze was in there. We had the VIP lounge in there. They had the theaters. They had an outdoor stage and an indoor stage. So, it was really nice getting that exposure, but we didn't get as much time to really wander and explore the city as we would have liked. We had a small area downtown, which was the museum
Right.
and the river walk that we spent all of the time. There's a bunch of caches, adventures, that kind of stuff down there. And so we spent the whole time really there.
Right. I think it might have been a little better if we would have stayed in a hotel closer to there. Not that we were far, but it's like there's the downtown area and then everything else is kind of sparse.
Yeah, the 2.5, 3 miles that we were made a difference. It was a 20-minute, half-hour drive.
To go like 2.5 miles.
And there were 2 hotels that were right there in the riverfront. So if you had booked earlier than we had, you probably could have gotten those hotels and spent some time there. But it also probably would have helped if you were not catching up with all of the friends
Right.
and doing nearly the caching that we were doing.
Right.
We had so many people that this is really the first time since before COVID and really before that we've run into these folks.
Right.
Right.
For most of them, the last time we saw them was in Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Unless they're people that are local.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really great to be able to connect with friends that you haven't seen at these things. They're great. And there's never enough time for that.
Right.
Whether you're staying in a hotel close by or not. So you couldn't do everything you wanted. It wasn't enough time to do everything. But what the things you did, what were the highlights?
Well, there were a lot of really cute businesses and things around there. Again, also people either very supportive or very curious about geocaching. So that was fun. One of our favorite places that we discovered, but it didn't quite have the hours we wanted, was called Gramps Coffee and Donuts. It was, comparable to the donut trail. They had some really wonderful pastries and things like that. But
I would say this was better than the Donut Trail donuts.
They weren't as
They weren't
as
as off the
interesting.
wall.
They weren't as interesting, but they were definitely
But they were really
tastier.
good donuts. Like
Definitely.
I actually wanted to eat the whole donut.
And they were
I
like
couldn't.
donuts still.
Yeah.
They were huge.
They were big donuts.
We ordered 6 and then we looked at them like
No, we only ordered 3.
3.
That was 3 donuts.
We did not finish the 3 donuts.
Like one donut could probably suffice for 2 people.
Absolutely. But it was a really cool place. Unfortunately, when we were up and ready for breakfast, it wasn't open yet, except for when we went there. I don't think it was breakfast. It was just one of those random, we're going to eat here, even though we're not really hungry kind of times.
Yeah. We happened to wander by as part
And
of
that was
one of
really
the caches.
cool because I think it used to be somebody's house, probably Gramps' house, and it was just, there's all these different parts, and the cafe was a very small part.
Mhm.
And if you needed to use the restroom, you could tell there was a whole upstairs and there was all these different parts to it. So when we looked at it from far away, we're like,
But it's this nice old 1800s commercial building.
mm-hmm.
Wow.
And absolutely.
Late
Why all
1800s.
these
but-
people are in his house.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, my Lord.
Exactly. One of the other things that we saw when we were on our way, it was totally by accident because there was so much construction on our way down. And we've watched this before. It was in LaGrange, Kentucky. And they have a webcam watching the train because the train goes, what do you call it again?
Street running.
A street running train.
One lane of
Oh,
the
yes.
street.
Oh.
Yeah.
They have the train track that goes there. So, the cars have to get off before the train can come through.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's actually really cool. We pulled off and I'm like, oh, look, there's a train museum. And we pulled in and he's like, I know this one. So,
And if we pulled in because there's Adventure Lab that
Right.
starts there and a cache as well. So, it's like, oh, we're off the beaten trail. Let's go find some caches. So it's one of those, I know where we are. We're
Right.
at LaGrange. We
And
have to take advantage of this.
and we thought we'd stop for like 10 minutes and then maybe 20 minutes and then maybe 2 or 3 hours,
I think we did 2 adventures down there
and a whole bunch of caches.
and like a puzzle,
We found ourselves on the camera,
yeah.
took
Well, and
screenshots.
the puzzle cache was that web camera.
Oh, you're right. It was.
Oh.
We
Because
had
it
to take a
was
picture.
after the webcams got grandfathered, so they put a puzzle in that used it.
Right. So that
that's
was really
smart.
cool. And speaking of webcams, was it Saturday morning or Sunday morning? Saturday morning.
It was Saturday morning.
Saturday morning before the actual event, we drove to Evansville, Indiana, and we did another webcam cache. It was a ghost cam in the Willard Library, which is this really cool old building. Or Sunday morning, Saturday morning.
It was Saturday morning.
Saturday morning before the actual event, we drove to Evansville, Indiana, and we did another webcam cache. It was a ghost cam in the Willard Library, which is this really cool old building. You're just walking through and you're like, this is really cool. And check it out. That was GCA4C4. Very, very cool. It had, I think there was 6 cameras.
There's
right?
6 cameras that are accessible to the public, and you only needed 1.
You only needed 1, but of course we did all 6, and so did the other people that were in there with us, or not with us, but people kept
there were
coming in.
at least 30 groups that walked through, and groups could be as many as 4. No. We had one group that was 8.
Yeah.
So it's like 8.
That was the one
no
we
less
walked
than
in
2.
with. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were happy to talk about it too. Happy to talk about the ghosts. Happy to talk about all kinds
They
of things.
love talking about the building, and it is a beautiful building.
And they have something very similar to like what you would find in Salt Lake City, where they have all the books of all the immigrants and all kinds of things dating pretty far back.
The
so
genealogy stuff.
I would love to go back there and look. We just really didn't have time to do that.
I think it was the entire 3rd floor is dedicated to genealogy.
But everywhere, just the whole building is cool to look at itself, and then all the stuff that's in it is really cool. We also ran into See My Shell, Craig, and both Darryl and Craig hit their 10,000th fine during the event, which was super cool.
So, of course, Joshua had to do part of his vlog on that one, which I ended up in that one as well. And then Craig stole the show and did a little bit for us as well, which was awesome.
Right.
Again, just it's so much fun to run into these folks that, we've been kind of working together, mostly parallel for years, and get the chance to, just sit down and not be vloggers and podcasters.
Right. Yeah. I did hit my 3,000th. I know that's not a very big milestone, but
congratulations.
Thank you.
But you did get your highest month ever. You got 220, was it?
No, there was more than that.
I got 240 caches in the month of May, and she did over 200, which is now her biggest month.
Right. He did a whole bunch of caching without me when he went to Poland.
Well, that's not fair.
As you do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I did see some of it on,
the best part of the Poland caching was almost all of it was walking from the hotel to the office, and I got a total of 20 finds, mix of adventures and caches.
And an event.
And one event that happened to be in the square that I had to walk through to get to the office. So I'm walking back from the office on my last day there. And it's like, okay, this is just perfect timing.
Right. And one other thing that we had, obviously seen, but not really had much exposure to was like the YouTube shorts. And we didn't really understand what we were supposed to do with them. So we got a little tutorial. And on the way back, we did our first YouTube short at a rest area, which was super cute. And it got like 5,000 views.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well done.
It was a very productive trip.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And there's always so much more than just at the event, right? All the things you described took place in not outside of the actual event, but considering the actual event. Were there specific highlights there? Let's mention the GPS maze. What did you think of that?
The GPS maze was the 2nd floor gallery of the Bluegrass Museum. This is the 2nd time that we've been to this new iteration.
Right.
I've been to you've never seen the first one, but I've been to the first iteration twice, the Minotaur one, and it's a totally different thing. The Minotaur version, there's no way you were going to get, 1,000 people through that in a day.
Okay.
This is much simpler. It has those cool banners. And one of the things that's kind of exciting about it, they actually sign that one banner, and that becomes part of the history for the event.
Yes.
Oh.
So you have the log banner, but it's really
and it's different than it was last time. It's very
they do update
similar,
it.
but we did it.
We did it at Midwest GeoBash.
Midwest GeoBash.
Okay.
And at Midwest GeoBash, there were some games to play at the end, win prizes, and they kind of did something interesting with it there. We've seen and heard some of the other appearances that it's made. So each event really does make it its own, and it is worth going.
Definitely.
Not just to get the icon, but to see what's changed. And in our case, they also had the adventure. So you had 10 finds that you got in addition to the
going
GPS
through the maze
maze
itself. Yes.
Right. Right. I know there are different versions of the maze. The one we did in Canada for GeoWoodstock up there is Canadian based. So that's going to stay moving around in Canada. I know they have one here. I know they have one or two in Europe. So they're all a little different.
Yes, yes. But the thing with the one that we've got now, and I think it's the same for the one that's running around in Canada, they are just banners. You don't have the artifacts. Right. And the original version from Minotaur had some artifacts. They would actually go and grab trackables from the local community even and put them in and then return them when they were done. But to help get that local involvement, to get people to kind of see what's happening in the local community and experience it. So this is a lot different in that it's all in these pre-done panels. It's really easy and quick to walk through. There's no stumbling hazards. It's not even really a maze.
Right.
You know, there's nowhere to get lost. In the original version, you would actually get lost in little rooms.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was a true maze. This is more of a walkthrough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I like both versions for different reasons. You know, if we had smaller crowds, I would definitely prefer that original Minotaur to what we have now, but I would not want to have to deal with the crowds going through that at one of these events.
I went in on Tuesday, Saturday.
Yeah, it would be, you know, okay, schedule your time. Yeah. Okay, the chauffeurs are going to come in and pull you out now because, you know, you've been in too long.
GPS means day 3. We're out of food. And
I really do like the maze exhibits. It's nice to see that come back because it did disappear for, I think it was only like 2 or 3 years. But, you know, the rest of the event, we talked a little bit about it being at the event spaces, and that was on the second floor. They did have a lot of problems getting folks up to the second floor because there's one elevator for the entire Bluegrass Museum that was accessible for it.
And when you get up to the third floor, it opens 2 different ways. One goes right into the second floor rather. One goes into the museum, and the other one
goes into the special exhibit space.
Right.
And to make it worse, the signs when the door closed says hit 2B or whatever for the exhibit space. Well, that's to get into the Bluegrass Museum.
Right.
So people were going to the Bluegrass Museum.
Right.
Rather than going to the adventure maze. And they're just sitting there going, what do we have to do? Okay. Yeah, right. So since you got stuck here, now you have to go back into the elevator, hit both doors, and walk through the elevator.
So you never knew when people were getting on, off, wanted to go up, down, or just through.
So it made for an interesting experience all the way around. But the Bluegrass Hall of Fame was a really nice event space, very comfortable, spacious. The third floor VIP lounge was really cool because it had the balcony that looked down over the outdoor area. Where
I'm assuming that's where people would usually sit, like on that grassy area. They would sit there.
Yeah, they'll sit there for the music. Yeah. They had the outdoor stage down there.
You can see the bridge.
Which our plan was we were going to go up there, catch Treasures of Our Town was doing their live recording there.
Couldn't figure out where it was.
They moved it indoors. So when we went up there, we couldn't see it.
Because they were inside on the first floor.
They were inside on the first floor. But
so when you got into the elevator, your big question was to be or not to be.
Exactly.
Well, and then
it was a good question.
3 being the VIP lounge.
Oh, you could go, 3. Was there a 3B? Because that's even better than 2B.
There was not a 3B.
Okay.
So there was no choice. But we had Bluegrass Hall of Fame. We had the Owensboro Convention Center, which they only used a small little part, and that was just a packet pickup, and the entire Riverwalk.
Right.
They really made great use of that. And this is one of the trends that I think has been happening as GeoWoodstocks get bigger, is they're picking up event space, reaching out to the folks who know how to handle these bigger crowds. And it really pays off. Like this time, the street fair, is that what they called it?
Yeah, on
Friday night.
They just started a series of every Friday night for 16 weeks that they have live music and they have food trucks.
During the summer, the entire Riverwalk area
Is a
gets
fair.
converted. They have a whole bunch of stages down there. So you have different acts, different types of acts,
Mm-hmm.
and a bunch of food trucks. So it turns into this big street party every week, and now you threw the geocachers into that.
Nice.
So it was
It was
really,
really nice.
really nice with not a lot of effort on anyone's part to get that set up. It was, hey, we're going to throw a few thousand more people at you.
And they're like,
not?
yay, perfect.
Sweet. Okay. More
More
food
the
truck.
merrier. Yeah.
Exactly.
Nice. Now, I see that GeoWoodstock and these large events tend to learn from year to year what works and what doesn't work. Did you find anything that didn't work at this event that you weren't the most fond of?
My biggest problem was you really had to subscribe and watch the announcements.
And
Information was changing as the event was running.
right, and not always in the same place. Like I got a couple emails, and even though I Facebook and he does not, I was not constantly checking Facebook because I wasn't even thinking about it, and that's where a lot of the announcements were. So it wasn't very clear.
But they were moving events. The Midnight Madness moved on us. We're standing around going, where is this event?
And there was something
they
else
moved
too.
it over
We're like,
here.
we're supposed to be here, and they're like, no, you're supposed to be over there. So,
Yeah, so it created some
madness.
confusion.
Yeah.
but there was enough people around that it worked. But yeah,
Yeah, and during the street party, they were making announcements as well that, you should go to this stage.
Right.
Oh, well, if we didn't run into Josh and Craig,
we
wouldn't have known.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Communication.
We
is
were
so
fortunate
important.
we were fortunate to keep running into them no matter what we did.
even beforehand, we didn't know what was going on because we didn't have a schedule of events.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing in the packets that
Nope.
told you what was going on. So I did miss having that because it really just felt like we're here. We don't know what we're doing.
Right. It would have been nice even if things changed, but there was no timeline even.
Yeah, they had a web page, which was actually a Google Doc that had their tentative
List.
agenda,
Right.
and the schedule had like strikeouts on it because this person canceled on them.
Right.
Oh.
Like
which
his
is
original
fine.
show notes.
Yeah, it's a lot like what we're doing for the show notes here.
Okay.
But it would have been, fine, except can we get something like that in the packet so we at least know how to plan and what to plan
Sure.
for?
Because there were definitely some places where Wi-Fi, or not Wi-Fi, but we didn't have much signal. So like
Oh, cell coverage.
there was a delay. And yeah.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned
So-
Midnight Madness, which is always a fun event, and GeoWoodstock is known to have. It's made up of events, and there's usually pre-events and post-events and event events and during events and shared events. I don't know. Did you get any of the pre or post events surrounding it?
We tried going to the Breakfast with the Mamas, which looked like it would have been a really good one, but it was.
Well, and to be clear, we actually
so
did
cool.
go.
Well, we did.
We spent money in the gift shop because it was a very cool little restaurant.
It was it was like a diner that really could afford to have about a couple hundred people. But there was a couple thousand people just ascending
But
in there.
it wasn't that big, but it seemed like it.
It seemed like it was very
Buffet style too.
buffet.
Oh, okay.
It was very, we signed the log, we schmoozed a little, and then I'm like, there's nowhere to sit.
Yeah.
And there's not even an outside option. It's not like you can take the buffet and go sit outside.
And
So-
even like the owner showed up trying to find a spot to park.
Right.
Oh,
It was, they way overloaded this place. It was
Yes.
pretty cool.
They were still in good spirits and they were still really nice about it and everybody was having a good time. It was just, I didn't want to stand and eat my food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not that kind of food anyway. We mentioned the street party. It was really cool. Like I said, you could tell there was not much effort and it was fine that we were there and everybody kind of blended with everybody. You can tell some of the locals were a little bit like, where did all these people come from?
The GeoWoodstock sign had been set up where we took the group photo.
Oh, yeah.
That everyone of the geocachers seemed to be congregating there.
Right.
So
It
we
seemed to be.
had our own little space. And that's where the pin was as well.
Right.
But they were all congregating there, and that's where the community of it was happening.
Absolutely.
And then everyone would run out, grab the food, go grab some shows, go whatever.
And come back there.
And come back. So it was a really nice, really did kind of feel like a street party with the park that we could go hang out in.
It was really nice. And we checked out the Midnight Madness, which seemed to move. Like it was supposed to be right
That was when
on
it
a
was
pier.
supposed to be on the pier right behind the Owensville Convention Center, or Owensboro Convention Center, which we were looking forward to being on that pier because, among other things, it had a great shot of the bridge.
Right. And the bridge was its own geocache. It blinked. Adventure Lab, sorry. It had the answers blinking in Morse code.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's handy.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Okay, so were there a lot of adventure labs? Did you do all of them?
Well,
there were 4.
We did parts of a lot of them too.
Well, we did all 4 of the official ones, for the event.
Right.
So we had the GPS adventure maze that we already mentioned. There was the Bluegrass Hall of Fame Museum.
That was cool.
That was great because we had, like, as we mentioned, access to the museum as part of the event. No charge. It's just free. So you walk through the museum.
It was real nice.
Answering these questions. And quite frankly, we were in such a hurry that this is all that we got to learn about bluegrass, really. But it was great because we got a little bit.
Right. More than I had before.
GSM times 2.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Set up the leveling up your
adventure
AL.
Or your AL.
So that's, again, 10 all around the outside. Activation area was smaller than I'd like. You had to actually walk it. It's not like you could just sit in the museum and do it.
And it was in order. It was sequential.
Yeah. So that was a really cool logic puzzle that frustrated a lot of people. We and most of the people there were getting a lot of help from other folks.
Including...
we actually had the CO with us, too.
I was going to say, including Scott. So
yeah, Scott, GSM times 2 actually walked with us for a while. But that was another one of those... When you get into those situations around the events, everyone's there. And we all kept getting sidetracked by people we knew. And, I don't know where we lost him, but we lost Scott before the end.
Because he kept getting, he had a thing he was giving people who finished, and they all kept finding
He had a SIG item that he was doing.
Right. And then they were all taking pictures, and they were all
we ran into Craig and Joshua again and got pulled that way, and, bunches of listeners. Yes. But the last one is that bridge artwork or bridge light up one, Adventure Lab, light up the night in Owensboro. So that one, we did that one during the day.
Yeah.
Because we got the hint. Then it was a really easy one to do.
But we saw it happening at night before we realized what it was.
What was blinking on the bridge? Was it something they put on there, or was it the bridge itself?
It's the bridge itself.
The bridge itself has lights going all the way across.
They have programmable colored lights, and it does different sequences. And I think it was every hour it was programmed to kick off with Morse code. Which our hint was it's the same as when they had Moga there.
Oh, so this is an ongoing thing with the bridge?
This was only the second time.
Okay.
But they had done it for Moga. And so when they did the Moga one, now we knew the answer. Not that we were at Moga, but, people had told us what it was.
Right.
So I'm not going to say it again.
Don't. We're not giving away any spoilers here.
Because I would not be surprised if they have another event in Owensboro. Owensboro is all about getting the cachers out there for the events. So I'm hoping that they do another one.
Right.
And I'd like to go down again. We still have some adventure labs we haven't finished, some that we started, and get a little bit more time with the city.
Sounds like a great city.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But for some of the other ones that we started and didn't do, there's some of them we did finish. But Owensboro Ornaments.
That was cool.
That was cool. It's a bunch of the, not really artwork, but cool things that are around there. There's an around the block in Owensboro, which goes around, I think it was the courthouse or town hall or something like that.
Both of them were there.
All monuments.
Right.
Well, and a couple of them lined up too.
Right.
There's the Kentucky Kid, which is about motocross.
Yes.
I think it was cyclist. And the 2nd Street Scavenger Hunt. That one was a lot of fun.
That was fun.
Downtown Owensboro Art Walk.
There's a lot of artwork just out and displayed.
And all of those intermixed with each other in some way along that second street.
Right.
So having Cashley with the Adventure Lab stages really was a must. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't have gotten most of those.
Right.
But there was also the POW MIA Gold Star Memorials one that we did, and a Yellow Bank cocktail that we just stumbled across because it was where one of the Earth caches was. And so we did that one as well. And
it took us a while to figure that out, but it used to be called, that whole riverfront was the Yellow Bank because of all the corn growing there.
And they had the Geo Tour on the Riverwalk, which was just everyone was doing them, walking up and grabbing them. The barbecue, bourbon, and bluegrass Geo Tour.
Oh, nice. So Yellow Bank wasn't a financial institution. It was
a
riverbank. Gotcha.
It was a riverbank.
Gotcha.
And it did have to do with the food, not the other part.
Exactly.
Nice. Now, Darrylw, I know you wouldn't go to an event like this without taking a load of technology with you. So,
Chris, I knew you were going to ask this question.
So, what did you bring?
A lot.
What would you bring to future GeoWoodstocks?
You gearheads.
That's one of the things is it's really stripped back. And I don't think I would have done anything differently, really, than what we ended up doing.
A few variations, but basically the same. That's true.
Well, and some of it was new tech that we were testing.
The tech had its own suitcase, basically.
That wasn't that
backpack.
bad.
Okay, it was just a backpack.
Well, and we did, to qualify that, we did have all of the vlogging gear. So we had the laptop, we had the 2 cameras, the chargers, all of that kind of stuff went along for the ride, which does complicate things. Yeah. But I did actually pull out the sample gear too. The coolest thing that we found most recently.
I love this thing.
I'm not sure that I would recommend it for folks who are traveling by airplane, but Anchor makes this cool little 3-in-1 cube. So if you do have an iPhone and an Apple Watch, this is kind of a mandatory. This top part folds out. You actually take your iPhone, smack it on there. It has a pop out on the side for the Apple Watch. Then if you have your AirPods or something else that's just a regular Qi charger, it goes on top of where that other panel folded up to take care of charging that one. Yeah. So all of this on a great little stand that you just leave by your bed or wherever you want it to be. It comes with the power supply and the cable for right now. It's an insane price of $150. I got it much lower than that when I did the 2 that we have, but it is a little heavy. Yeah. So I don't really recommend it for the plane. That said, I'm going to be taking it on the plane.
Right. I mean, it is pretty heavy, but
and a lot of that weight is just to make sure that it doesn't slide around.
But it was perfect next to the bed. Right.
Over. Right.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. You do have to have some weight.
Perfect for a hotel room to put your devices on at night, charge them up, and head out. Gotcha.
Exactly.
Right. And it doesn't take up a lot of space, not a lot of cords and all that kind of stuff.
And it's a USB-C charger, so you don't have to use the cable that it comes with. You don't have to use the charger it comes with. If you have something else, you can do that. But for most people, that's an insane price. I actually like, there's this little 2-in-1 folding charger that I got that really isn't that bad. It doesn't have the Apple Watch, but you've got this nice little fold up. You put it by your bed. You've got another stand here for your wireless stuff, and you're done. So these are cheap. They're like $40.
Okay, nice.
And there's a whole bunch of them out there. Find one that fits what you want. But that's nice because it folds flat, especially for the folks traveling. Right. I took this one to Poland. This is a nice thing to have with you.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. I was going to say, we bought quite a bit or tested out quite a bit between his international trip and getting ready to go.
And something that came up with the international travel is that international power supply. Because when you're going to Europe, what I didn't realize is most of these actually do work. Anything that's USB-C is its own, but most of these things that plug in do actually have the international power supply. So you just need the adapter. You don't need the transformer.
Right.
So you can plug them in directly. So this cool little 2-in-1 or 3-in-1, whatever they call it, from Anker, it's a cube power supply, a power bar kind of thing, is really amazing to travel with when you're in the airports. The one problem that I have with this is it doesn't have enough power to drive like your laptop. So this is really for the accessories. I like to keep this one around, put it by the nightstand, but it's not awesome, for like the laptops, because it will drive like your small laptops, like a Chromebook,
Or
like
an
a
iPad.
MacBook Air,
So
to
about
your
30 watts.
iPods. It's, I want to say 40 watts, 40,
Okay.
45.
So,
So it does do quite a bit.
USB-A, USB-C, Edison plug.
Yep.
Any wireless on that?
No wireless on those.
Okay.
But it does have the 3 ports, the 3 AC ports, so that you can plug in other devices, which is why that's so awesome at the airport.
Right.
Great way to make friends.
Yes, exactly.
You plug that in, everyone else plugs in, no one is upset.
Well,
But
people at the airport
Well,
are always
not
upset.
as upset.
We're not talking about that.
But this is a newer model from Anker, the 727 charger. Not a cheap one, but it is 100 watts, and it is really, really thin.
Wow.
It is too thin to have the Edison plugs.
Okay.
Oh,
So what they do is this very cool mechanical extension. When you plug it in, which you're not going to really be able to see on camera, but I'm going to try anyway, the collar actually reaches up to grab the socket. So it still stays very thin and light. And then you have the 2 USB-Cs and the 2 USB-As.
Okay.
So this one will power a laptop and more.
Nice.
It's kind of pricey, but I really like this one for the folks who are going to be traveling on the airplane, because it is universal. You just need that adapter for whatever country you're going to and plug right into the wall. No transformer. And this was a handy one to have. Then we've probably all seen these power blocks. I've got a few of them. This is not the one that I put in the show notes either. They're fairly inexpensive. It has, 3 or 4, maybe even 5 on there. Just quick, cheap, easy, flips out. You can get the adapters for these guys for the international travel.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they even come with extension cords, which makes it even easier to put on the nightstand. But these are so small, light, easy to travel with. I really like having these in the everyday travel bag, because you never know when you're going to need it. Even just at the office, sometimes I've had to pull this out for additional power.
Yeah. Darryl, recently I got a 200-watt USB-C charger.
That's what this one is.
This one's from Ugreen. It's not cheap,
No.
but it can run both of our laptops in the office, the iPads, the iPhones, everything to charge and keep it going on a single charger, which I think, is actually going to save power in the long run.
And most of them are smart enough that they start throttling up or down.
Yeah.
So you're in much better shape.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing that we started doing with the new iPhones is the MagSafe chargers.
Mm-hmm.
So Apple does actually have a MagSafe battery. I love this battery. It is the best of the batteries as far as the technology goes, because it's lightweight, doesn't have as much capacity as most of the others, but it actually transfers the information to the phone. It charges from the phone and vice versa. So, it talks with the phone. You don't have to worry about overheating with these.
that's a big deal.
So these are great, but they're not cheap. They're, about $100.
Right. Yeah. I've been looking at them. They're $91 on Amazon. So yeah, it's not cheap.
Yeah. Right now, I think you're actually down to 85.
Okay. There may be a temporary sale, but it's
Yeah.
it's one of the more expensive.
And all of
MagSafe
this stuff. Oh, absolutely. But all of this stuff, keep an eye out for the sales, because especially like the Anker stuff, that stuff goes on sale. And, the 3-in-1 cube that is $180. I don't think I paid $80 for it.
Yeah.
It's, you could get all of this stuff a lot cheaper. You just have to watch. But one of the new ones that we tried for Renee, and then I went out and got myself one of them, was the Anchor 522 MagSafe, or magnetic, because it's not technically MagSafe, it's magnetic.
Right.
With the pop socket.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been a fan of the pop sockets. They always, to me, just got in the way.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
However, on the battery, this works really, really well because it's on the battery and then the phone just sticks to it. And with the magnets on the 622s, it doesn't want to come off.
Right. That part's really nice.
The problem that we've been running into with these, it's overheating her phone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We did have this problem with the battery cases and some, the non-Apple
piggyback
battery cases, the non-smart ones. So what we're trying with it and worked for me today, we have only had the one day, is as long as you top it up, or no, yesterday, sorry.
Yesterday.
But as long as you're plugging it in, popping this on at 90% or better, it doesn't ramp up the charge. It just kind of trickle charges it. We haven't seen the same level of problems.
Right.
Still work in progress.
So put it on early, let it
Yes.
trickle charge, use that battery first.
Yep.
Then use the internal battery once the external is dead.
Yeah.
Right.
Daily use the internal battery and just leave it at that.
Yeah.
But if you're going to go Pokemon Go, if you're going geocaching, use the external battery. When it's dead, let it fail over and be done with it. Again, for the travel, though, one of the batteries that got me back into the Anchor MagSafe stuff, which isn't actually MagSafe, there's a also 622 that's been redesigned. So this one actually has the back that folds down kind of like an iPad case and will stand up. The redesign of this is they move the USB-C to the side.
Mm.
This will now act as your charging station as well. So if you want to charge up at the hotel, you don't have to have anything but another power supply. It will charge this battery and the phone connected to it. Makes it really nice, and I like having this on the plane or a bunch of other places too.
Yeah.
Also of note, these batteries, the MagSafe stuff, as I understand it, is going to be the Qi 2 standard.
Oh, interesting.
So Qi 2 is going to support almost all of the MagSafe
That's good.
basic magnetic functions and charging, so it's going to be a lot easier. The one thing I will give as a cautionary tale, we have the 533 that we got from Anchor as well. It's got the little stands, just a bigger, heavier duty battery. Has the USB-C on the side. Ends up being a pain in the butt. It doesn't work. This falls off the phone because it is so big and heavy, or the phone falls off of it. And with this little flick stand like that and the weight of the battery in the phone, it just falls over. Plus, it's just a pain in the butt. But there's a bunch of these bigger batteries that we've tried, and we like the idea of the bigger battery because especially most of these third parties will have the ability to charge other stuff.
Right.
So top off anything that's USB with one of those. However, the MagSafe doesn't work so well.
Too heavy.
Yeah.
So now you got a crash course in all of the research that we've done on the magnetic batteries and everything.
I went out and got an Anchor 621 because of you, and I also picked up a Mophie.
What's a Mophie?
Nap and Go. It's another battery maker. And
Mophie is another great manufacturer. I think they were acquired by Zag.
Were they?
But they've been in this forever. And if you remember, that was one of the first battery packs we were recommended. Was
the
Mophie.
G-Specs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Darryl, Renee, thank you so much for talking to us about this. This has been great. And we hope to have you on again because, I miss talking to you on a weekly basis.
Even if we don't talk about the stuff we're supposed to talk about.
Exactly.
That happens easily.
Oh, folks, thanks for tuning in. We hoped you enjoyed this episode of Caching in the Northwest. I do want to take a moment and thank Landsharks and Gold Country Geotourism, our
That's
corporate Denali level sponsors. Landsharks is the outdoor adventure and geocaching store. Check them out online because they ship orders daily. And for absolutely amazing geocaching adventures, check out exploregoldcountry.com. And of course, we want to thank all of our patrons. That's Peach of Washington,
Green Words,
and Nerve,
Limax,
Gas Station Tuna,
You Talks to Rocks,
RAR 285,
Whidbey Island Gal,
Subway Mark,
Logwork,
Skyhawker,
Wet Coaster,
Boomer 365,
RE54321,
Just Carlo,
BC Rock Crawler,
Just Finding Our Way,
The Camp Clan,
Flagman,
Kev MacD,
Kid Vegas 19,
Broncos Fan for Life,
Geocaches,
Sege Hove,
Korsgat,
Alarobrick,
Team Noltex,
UDAC,
Kitty Quest,
CRS 98,
Genies,
MC3 Cats,
Seebeck Tribe,
GeoNav Pro,
Wino Seattle,
HackerDoc,
GSM times 2,
Antaeus,
our favorite kitchen appliance, the LG 9000,
B Pendragon,
Dora Moore,
Trexer.
and J-Car. Thank you, guys.
Yeah,
and
we want to
thank you. Now, Darryl, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, or Renee, if somebody wanted to talk to you about stuff, what's the best way to reach you?
Well, we do have an email address, which is rdwadventuresyt@gmail.com. But make sure to check out the YouTube channel, and I'm sure we'll put the link in there, but it's just RDW Adventures on YouTube.
Fantastic. And folks, thanks for taking the time to listen to this episode of Caching in the Northwest. Your support helps keep the quality shows coming. So if you like the show, please click the Patreon link on the cachingnw.com website. Now, if you didn't like the show, let us know what you want us to talk about. In either case, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and more. Subscribe and give a review. If you were in a restaurant, you would tip. If you were in a live audience, you would clap. But since you're on a podcast, leave us a free, fast, fabulous, fantastic 5-star review. And of course, you can always call into 253-693-TFTC and leave a comment, ask a question, or, help us out at a GeoWoodstock any time of the day or night. You can also email us at feedback@cachingnw.com and join us every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Pacific for a live show and chat. The show's produced by Chris Umfenauer, Jim Paulwitz, Jay Kennedy, and Brian Lang. It's licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license, copyright 2023 by Chris Umfenauer. And thanks, folks.